Assalamu alaikum. What another wonderful morning in the city of Abu Dhabi. I'd like to start with a quick raise of hands. How many of you are in a family WhatsApp group? That's what I thought. And there's one rule all of you know. You can't leave. And if you even thought about it, that's a family crime. You miss a picture of the cat in the garden, you're doing something wrong. And there's always that link from mom that you know it's a very specific link or a sticker that's just we're so used to. And the truth is, thank God for these groups, because it reminds us of who we are. It shows us that there are people that still want to share our experiences and want us to experience life with them, even if we are a little bit far away. You see, in between the messages and the blurry selfies are parts of us. I believe there are invisible threads that connect us from who we are to who we're becoming to who we're from. And when we realize that, we start to appreciate the people in our lives more. Because the truth is, time is fleeting. And this is why I'm here today, to talk to you about the people in your life, the people in our lives, who quietly shape us, sometimes softly with love, and sometimes through tough love. And this is a story about how every single person in our lives, whether we know them or like the crowd over here, many strangers sitting, has an entire world within themselves. There's a word for that. It's called sonder. And just maybe, if we realize that a little bit better, we might assume less, love better, be kinder. A few years ago, I started thinking about the person I am, where I come from, who my parents are. And throughout that journey, I realized something important. The preservation and celebration of people in our lives who are still alive. And that is why I started writing letters to my father, letters from his legacy. It's still a work in progress. But I had encountered, like many times before, people that have come to me and spoke so highly of how my father had helped them with both compassion and strength. And I thought to myself, I have stories like that too that the world does not know. A man that was shaped through the trials and tribulations of life, and there are lessons there. Before I begin, I have to remember a very important quote from our founding father, the late Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, Allah yarhamah, God rest his soul, who says, اللي ما له ماضي ما له حاضر ولا مستقبل. He who has no past has no present nor future. You see, heritage is not only something we inherit, it's what we choose to understand. It's the lessons we choose to carry forward. the values, the habit, the stories. And when we do that, we protect our future. And so I'd like to start with the first lesson I learned from my father. And I'd like you to keep it as an anecdote that I'll come back to later. My father had just come back from the United States, having studied chemical engineering at the University of Knoxville. And as many chemical engineers, got into one of the big oil and gas companies in the UAE. And he was stationed in Habshan, an oil and gas field. And unlike today, where the infrastructure is ever evolving, the road from Abu Dhabi to Habshan was not as safe as we'd like it to have been at the time. And there came a time in that period when my father had to drive back and forth every day because his mother had broken her arm. And though there was help at home, he understood one thing: sacrifice is a responsibility. And I like to connect the two from the lessons I've learned from my father, is that time and sacrifice go hand in hand. Because time is fleeting and sacrifice is what we give up our time for. He always used to tell me that time is something you can never keep. The second that just passed will never come back. And for a time, I used to always think that that meant I needed to hurry, especially in a world where speed means progress. But in reality, it means that we need to be more present. And so my first lesson and the first letter that I wrote was about time and sacrifice and that road to Habshan. The second lesson was about courage. Because courage is not the absence of fear, but it's the leap of faith you take. And it starts at home. Because in our capacities to be able to be the people we're meant to be, we need to be built up to believe that we can be. And so whenever I went to my dad and I asked him, I'd like to do something, he always tell me, try. He never told me be the best. He told me be the best that you can be. Because we are ever so evolving. And that is safety. Because to be the best is absolute. But to be the best you can be means you can always try again and learn. And that is a very valuable lesson. Because when we inherit courage, it means we know that once we go in life, if we fall, we can rise up. If we face challenges, we can find solutions. And that is why when I was in my early 20s, I had decided to start a business. My first ever restaurant. A hot dog and burger joint, because I am so in love with burgers. And I called it 7 Dogs. In the midst of the pandemic, when everything was uncertain, my father told me, if it feels right, go for it. And I did. And we're 4 years old today. So my second lesson is courage. My last lesson is about respect. You see, my father treated every interaction as a way of life, a classroom. How you treat the people in your lives is a reflection of how the people in your home are treated. It started when I was very young. a little boy trembling when a waiter would ask, "What would you like to eat?" And I'd hesitate, and my father says, "Tell them what you want." So he taught me that speaking up with dignity is clarity. And that when you afford yourself the dignity of respect that you afford others, you create an ecosystem of continuous respect. People remember how you make them feel. You see, respect is the foundation of any community. When people ask about a person, they ask about the kind of person he is or she is. And it's so important that we know and remember this. And that is my third lesson. It's the lesson of respect. You see, communities are not built in institutions. They're built in the living room, at home, how you treat the people that raised you, how you treat the domestic workers that serve you. Do you celebrate their happiness? Do you grieve their sorrows? How do you greet your neighbors? How do you pass on the lessons that were passed on to you? You see, the threads of us don't have to be grand. They're in the everyday. They're in the lessons that we learn, in the values that we carry. Before I get to my call to action, I need to go circle back to that road to Habshan that I have seen time and time again. And it's an anecdote. In the early 2000s, I was about 7 or 8. My father's mother, Lula, had just come back from a holiday in London. She was ill. She was a diabetic. She had asthma. And because Ramadan as a child is such a novelty, it was an excuse for us to stay up late. And I decided that I was going to fast the next day, even though I knew that was a complete lie. So I had convinced them that I'm going to have suhoor, and I'm holding this plate in my hand, going to my grandmother Lula's room. When I look up, I see her at the threshold of the door, blue-faced and pale. And she tells me, "Where is your father?" And as he put his hand on the doorknob, on his way with my mother to get me clay materials to build a clay city, I see him race up all the way to his mother. And as he cradled her in his arms, the same way she cradled him when he came into this world, and he put the nebulizer on her face to say, "It's okay, I'm here." And as she was fleeting away, I learned something, and I saw this. Despite the fact that they were trying to pull me away, I saw this. I learned that love and time are so sacred. So here's my call to action. You don't need to write letters. You don't need to do something grand. But you can do something. Send a text that you haven't. Pick up the phone and call the people you've been avoiding because of some misunderstanding. Apologize where pride has stopped you. Forgive where ego has stopped you. Because the only truth in this life is that in order for us to build communities that continue to grow and to appreciate the world we live in, we must first appreciate the people in our homes and build the bridges within ourselves. Thank you.